Just making sure they're snug, but not over tight. That should carry it. Hopefully. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Forgot to put the boot on. Hey folks, how's it going? And today we're working on the 97 Ford again. Why? Because it's a Ford. No, not really. It's because we're replacing the drive shaft carrier bearing for the truck. Stay tuned. So in case you don't know, the drive shaft carrier bearing supports the drive shaft right underneath here. So let's take a look. Right here, this is my drive shaft carrier bearing. And one of the symptoms that I have that this thing is out is that whenever you put your foot on the accelerator and take it off, you hear this kind of a clucking sound. And I suspect that it's because this drive shaft carrier bearing is clearly broken. You can see the rubber is busted out, and it's not really doing that good of a job at carrying the drive shaft. Probably because it's like 20 years old. But anyways, one of the things to be careful of whenever we are removing this drive shaft is that it is balanced in a specific way. And so we're going to want to make sure that we put it back the exact way it was. So what's going to happen is we're going to have to take off this boot right here. There's actually a yoke shaft here that will slide out. And then also, what I'll probably do is mark the orientation of this drive shaft so that I get it all in the exact same place it was before. And of course, since we are taking out the drive shaft, we went ahead and blocked the wheels to make sure the truck does not roll away. Alright, well I'm underneath the truck right now, and first I'm going to do is get this boot off so that we can take a look at that yoke. One way I can tell this thing's never been done before is that it still has the factory clamps on it. Let's go ahead and cut those off. And that hammer and chisel worked great. It slides right into there. Alright, now I can see where the yokes join together. Alright, so I'm going to hopefully not break this, but I'm going to put a little marking on this. I'll use that for lining it up later. Okay, so right now I'm going to see if I can take off these bolts right here for the drive shaft carrier bearing. These are that coming out of the back of the transfer case. Certainly if your truck's two-wheel drive, you're not going to quite have that. It's going to be a little bit different, but these appear to be 12mm 12-point socket. You got a big breaker bar because these things are really stuck in here. I got that loose. I did spray them down with a little bit of penetrating oil before I started. And this is where it really helps to have your parking brake on, because then it'll hold the drive shaft for you. It's really stuck. Oh shoot, tighten it, dang it. Idiot. Alright, I've got those loose. Now I'm going to see if I can loosen up the bolts in the drive shaft carrier bearing itself. Alright, time to tackle these two carrier bearing bolts. Here will be 14mm. I got that loose. Okay, I went ahead and pulled out all these bolts for the drive shaft, and now there's just these little J-clip things, bolt clips holding in carrier bearings. Slide those off the side, and it just releases like that. And now, hopefully, you can separate the two halves. Just pulls right out. There you go. Well, I got the drive shaft out of the truck now. You can see the whole piece, it's a real short little thing. And you can see this here is actually the slip joint that moves back and forth, and that's what allows to account for any movement in suspension. Now, one of the cool things I just discovered is that Ford actually has this large set. The spline is set up in such a way that there's only one way that you can put it up, and that's the right way. So you really shouldn't have to worry about it being out of balance whenever we go to put it back together. But now, see if we can tackle pulling off the old drive shaft or carrier bearing. Alright, well this boot here just slides right off. Let's get out of the way. Now it gives you a bit of a clearer picture. Now, one of the things I just realized I was worried about me for a second was that this is a much bigger shaft than this one, but luckily, with the carrier bearing, it does actually slide right over it, so we don't have to worry about it. It'll be made up just fine. Now looking at it, you can see just how falling apart my carrier bearing was. Now, it looks like this thing is a bit press fit on here, and I think it's going to pose a little bit of a challenge getting it off. So I think what I'm going to do is, this thing's so short anyways, we're going to cut it off, because I've got this one as a replacement anyways. Well, it looks like this is going to be a good job for my angle grinder with a cutoff disc. rubber's so old, just not coming off like that. There you go, there's the left of the rubber. Now it looks like we're actually more at the core of the bearing. Okay, while I am doing this, I want to make sure I'm very careful so as to not actually nick the drive shaft itself. Oh, there we go. This section just released after I took all the pressure off them. Alright. I still have that part of the bearing. There we go. And balls went flying everywhere. Great. Oh, I hate destroying a perfectly good ball bearing, but now you can see that there's a section here that's actually press fit on there. So that's the part that I have to actually get off. Well, I'm sure I could get this thing off with continual chiseling and grinding and cutting it off, but I'm going to just use my cutting torch, see if I can heat it up and get it off, because it hopefully will be a bit easier. Finally moved a little bit, expanded enough, weakened that I can get it off. Woohoo! Got it off now, and I didn't hurt it, damage the thing too much. Woohoo! And of course, using a little bit of Scotch-Brite to clean up the mating surface isn't a bad idea either. Alright, well, looks like it's time to go ahead and finally reinstall the bearing. Now, one thing to note is that the original one has a little marking on here that says that points towards the front. Now, this one I have is aftermarket, and it definitely does not. In fact, both sides look exactly the same, so I'm just going to choose one side and put it on and, well, hope for the best. Certainly, if you got the Motorcraft or the original OEM one, you would want to make sure that it points towards front. Okay, I've got a little piece of pipe here. I'm going to see if I can use. Make sure I don't damage up the bearing itself. I got the drive shaft shed on the ground. And now, grab a hammer and start lightly tapping it on. And of course, as you are hitting the bearing onto the surface, make sure that you hit it all the way around the sides so that it goes on evenly. Alright, well, it looks like that should pretty much do it. Got my pipe stuck on there. There we go. Whew. Be careful with that. That was weird. Well, I destroyed that fitting, but oh well. I got it on there. Looks like it kind of jammed itself against the fitting, but let's see if I can blow some compressed air through there, get some of those shavings out from this. But I think it's in there. You'll feel whenever you're hitting it, it kind of, your hammer will bounce up a little bit more, and I guess that's how you can tell it's seated. But man, I think it spins real nice. Maybe even get better fuel economy with a sucker. Let's see. Golly, you wouldn't really think that the hardest part of this so far is just trying to get this freaking boot on here. But it is. It's darn near really hard to do. There we go. Nope, no, go on, get on there. There you go. Finally. Okay. Now she's finally going on there. Good. Alright. There we go. Now it's finally on there. Okay. Let's go ahead and hook the sucker up. Back underneath the truck. See if we can get this drive shaft back installed. See, while I've got this, while I've got the drive shaft off there, I might as well clean up this spline a little bit. And then I'm going to see if I can even put some fresh grease on it too. Because this is designed to slip back and forth. I'm going to make sure that it can definitely do so. Now the fun part, trying to raise the other drive shaft and getting the other one up. Alright, there we go. Get that in. Let's see if I can suspend it on these hooks again, like it originally was. I think I got it started. I found that one of the best ways to hold up the drive shaft was to actually reinstall one of the bolts from the drive shaft to the transmission flange. This way, it supported the drive shaft and made the installation of the carrier bearing a heck of a lot easier. Alright, well go figure. We're running into some issues. See, I have this aftermarket piece. It doesn't quite fit right, and these clips don't fit over it exactly like it should have. So what I'm doing is I'm actually bending them and I'm turning them into regular old bolts. It appears these are made out of some really hard steel, but that means you can break them off pretty easily. Okay, nice and snug. Got the boot in there, didn't forget that now. Let's go ahead and bolt up these flanges. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is bolt up these flange bolts, and you can see for installation I just put 2 of these in. They held up the back side of the drive shaft for me while I was holding it up with my legs like that, and works just fine. So I'll put a couple of zip ties, something of that nature on there to help hold this boot on there, and then we can take this thing for a test spin. Well, here you can see I went ahead and put those zip ties on there. I ended up using stainless steel zip ties. I had those sitting around. I think they look pretty good, and hopefully they'll hold up a bit longer. I did also take this thing out for a test spin, and I gotta say that carrier bearing does indeed work, which I'm definitely glad about that. But you know what? I'm hoping that this Chinese piece of quality will hopefully last another 20 years like the rest of this truck. Well, that does it for this video here today. In the meantime, you'll have a good one and good luck with your carrier bearing.